These girls, the PLLs, they weren't like super famous yet. So it was really, really interesting to, meet them just as regular people. It feels amazing. I feel very, very lucky to have been part of a show that was so beloved and successful all over the world. And originally I was only supposed to be in 2 episodes. And then the creators of the show, Marlene King, and the other writers, they liked what I was doing with Lucas, and they liked, how I interacted with Hannah and how the relationship with Ashley's character sort of changed her character a little bit. So they kept writing Lucas in, and it turned into this, role that was in all 7 seasons. And I just feel really lucky and fortunate. And then of course, just being in this Pretty Little Liars world, the fans are just amazing. I think all of us are very, very lucky to still have such enthusiastic fans. Oh yeah, I do. I remember I met Lucy first in the hair and makeup trailer. And I walked in at the same time. She's like, "Oh, hi, I'm Lucy." And keep in mind that I started working on the show on episode 6 of the first season. And it was before the pilot ever aired. So the show had not even been on yet. I think it premiered maybe 3 weeks after I started working in the US. So these girls, the PLLs, they weren't like super famous yet. So it was really, really interesting to, meet them just as regular people. And then a couple months later, like, boom, I see them on, the cover of magazines at the grocery store. That's a really weird feeling, seeing your friends on the cover of a magazine at the grocery store at the airport. So yeah, but sorry, back to my first day. So I met Lucy first, and then I met Shay. And they had just finished, she had just finished doing a scene, I think with Toby. And so what happens is, you go in to the soundstage onto the set, and they're finishing up the other scene, and you're there so that they can just continue on to the next thing. So I kind of got to see them, finishing the Toby, Shay scene. It had something to do with they were in the chemistry lab, and she thought that he was evil, and she pushed him into the chemistry lab cart or whatever. And then we filmed the scene between me and Hannah, the very first Lucas Hannah scene, which was in the group abstinence club. And that's also the scene that I auditioned with also. So yeah, I remember it vividly. That's such a hard decision. I loved the character relationship between Hannah and Lucas the most, just because I thought it was very unique, because there was no other relationship on the show quite like it, and I think it was refreshing to have a friendship that was a boy-girl friendship that was not romantic. And I feel like we could do a lot of really interesting things with those scenes that some of the other characters who were in romantic relationships couldn't do. And then, Ashley and I just had a really good rapport with each other. So I think all of our scenes, for the most part, were a little bit more light and comedic. So I love getting the opportunity to do those scenes. But then my favorite scenes, Janel's one of my best friends. So, getting the chance to work with her on things, I just love that from me as Brendan, not as the character, but just getting the opportunity to work with her, it was great. So for sure. Yeah, it was really important. 'Cause I think I think it was a way to kind of break down social barriers and normalize the idea of like, we're all people, you know, we're all people going through the same thing. And you could either be at the top of the social food chain like Hannah or the bottom like Lucas and still find things in common and have a mutual respect for each other. So I think that's a really important message to young people. And then also one of the interesting things, and I talked a lot about this with Marlene, the dynamic between Lucas and Hannah, it gave Hannah, it made her more likable. It made that character more likable, and it gave her more a greater depth that she could be friends with somebody and respectful of somebody and trust somebody who was, you know, not like her at all. And I think that was the main function of the Lucas character, was to kind of give Hannah some more humanity as opposed to just making her the ditzy, you know, popular girl. So it was a really important just storytelling tool as well. I was, you know, I would have loved to have been A myself, just because as an actor, that would have been a great challenge. But I think that it ended up in a place that made sense. It made sense because it was so close to the liars themselves, more close than I think that they thought. You know, it was somebody who was like the biological twin of one of them. And, you know, it adds this dramatic element to it of like, how could somebody do that who's my own family? So it made sense where it ended up. However, I would have loved to have played A at some point myself. Yes. Oh, for sure. It was. Those were the most fun scenes. You know, as an actor, it's always more fun to play the bad guy than the good guy. And the interesting thing is that, especially early on, I think there was one time in season 7 with like the comic book and everything where it was like the last time that they thought that I was A, and by that point I knew that I wasn't, like, for sure. But earlier on in season 2, 3, 4, they didn't tell us what was going to end up happening by the end. So when we saw something in the script where it was like, oh, I could be A, like I legitimately, as Brendan, thought, oh, I could totally be A. I don't know where this is going. And so that was really exciting. The possibility of potentially being the big bad guy was a lot of fun, because I was on the ride with you guys. You know, I didn't know either. I'm closest with Janel. She and I actually live down the street from each other. So in normal times, we see each other all the time. And now with, you know, quarantine and everything, we don't see each other in person as much. Let's see, I haven't kept in contact with a ton of people. I talk to Marlene every now and then. Janel actually introduced me to my girlfriend. So there's that. I'm trying to think. Not really. It's, you know, everyone has kind of gone their separate ways and is working on different projects, either in Los Angeles or out of town. So no, I mean, I would love to have like a little reunion at some point once, you know, everyone doesn't have to quarantine anymore and we can see each other in person. So maybe someday. I would love to see Lucas in it. I'm, you know, whenever they ask me back to be a part of it, I'm totally game for that. All that I know about it is that it's from the same creator as Riverdale. And so it takes place apparently it takes place in the same Pretty Little Liars universe. So the other characters, I think they exist, but it's focused, I think, on a new town and a new, so I don't know if they're going to try to blend, you know, some of the old show in with the new show. But, you know, I I understand why some people might think that it's too soon. However, I try to remain positive about everything, and I'll definitely tune in. I'm excited to see it. I've heard that it's going to be darker than the original. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.